Mini PCs might be great for saving space, but let's be honest, they have often been seen as compromises, especially when it comes to performance. Can something this small and affordable truly handle serious tasks, like running an entire library of classic games through emulation, or even dipping into modern 1080p gaming? Well, the sponsor of this video, AliExpress, challenged me to do just that. Find a machine on their platform that is not only small and affordable, but also easy to use and actually be able to handle everything we throw at it. Which I'm hoping for semi-modern emulation and even AAA games, but that might be wishful thinking. There are a ton of devices on AliExpress that would make for good emulation machines. The main selling point is going to be what APU is included, if at all. On top of that, things like I/O, power management, and versatility are going to help us out a lot in the future. So if you decide to upgrade your emulation machine to a full-fat gaming PC, you can still use your mini PC as a general use computer or even a home server. Making your hardware last as long as possible and serving many purposes is how we like to do things on this channel. The devices offered vary in price pretty drastically. If you spend less, you usually get less performance. It's that simple. So I wanted to find a sweet spot that offered a lot of versatility, good performance, but doesn't start being so expensive that you might as well, buy an ITX gaming PC. I ultimately landed on this, the GMK Nuckbox K6. After using AliExpress's sale coupons, I was able to get this guy for $238 US, bare bones before taxes. So don't you dare buy this full price. Those sale coupons are no joke. Bare bones means that our configuration did not come with RAM or storage space, but we can easily do that ourselves and maybe even save a few bucks. But first, let's take a look at the device. This thing is tiny. I'm still amazed to this day how much computer you can fit into such a tiny form factor. This would blow someone's mind 20 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. It's a complete desktop replacement that takes up almost no space. On the front of the device, we've got the power button, a 3.5mm audio port, a USB 4 USB-C that is capable of 40 gigs a second, and two USB-A 3.2 Gen 2s. Pretty good. And on the back we get USB 2, another USB 3.2, a Kensington lock, DisplayPort, HDMI 2.0, dual RJ45 2.5 gig Ethernet ports, and then of course the barrel plug DC in. And honestly, not a bad turnout in terms of I/O. There's more than enough here for general computing. You can turn it into a router, a home server, and with that USB 4 on the front, it means we're going to be able to plug in a Thunderbolt eGPU if we ever wanted to go down that route in the future. The only downside is that we do not get an Oculink port, which would allow for just better overall eGPU performance, but I think that port missing is one of the reasons why it's so cheap, and 99% of people aren't going to use it anyway, but it's still a nice to have. Inside this compact chassis beats the heart of an AMD Ryzen 7 7840HS processor. This is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, built on the newer Zen 4 architecture. Paired with that, we have the Radeon 780M graphics. Now, this isn't a dedicated graphics card, obviously, but for integrated graphics, the 780M is pretty impressive. It's based on AMD's RDNA 3 architecture, which means it inherits a lot of the same technological advancements you find in their discrete graphics cards, just in a more compact and power-efficient package. So for this video, I'm actually not going to install Windows. This is my dedicated living room gaming machine after all. I wanted an operating system that can easily be managed by a controller, so I'll be installing SteamOS. And for the uninitiated, SteamOS is the operating system that Valve puts on their Steam Deck handhelds. It's Linux-based and provides an easy-to-use console-like experience. They recently released a version that is compatible for devices that aren't the Steam Deck, so I wanted to try it out on this machine. It's going to allow us to get all the emulation we desire, but also be able to play whatever games we own on Steam in an easy-to-navigate by controller fashion. Oh, but we need to install some stuff first. This device can handle DDR5, SODIMM RAM in dual channel, as well as dual 2280 M.2 NVMe Gen 4 drives. So definitely some power going into this thing. For now, I picked up half a terabyte of storage for 30 bucks and 16 gigs of memory for another 35. Installing these is super easy. The top plate comes off just by pulling on it, and underneath are 4 standard size screws. And after getting them out and pulling off the fan cover, you get complete access to all of the internals. So you just install the SSD and RAM like you would on any other computer and close the machine back up. Very, very simple. I won't go through the entire process of installing SteamOS, as Valve has a very comprehensive and easy to follow guide, but I will link to it in the video description. Okay, let's test out some performance on this thing. For the emulation side, I'm going to install EmuDeck, which is mostly just an emulator manager that was designed for the Steam Deck originally, but works on a lot of platforms now. It downloads everything you need all at once, integrates it into Steam, and makes it really easy to organize your ROMs. I'm also using Emulation Station as the front end, and this is just because I don't want hundreds of ROMs crowding my Steam library. So if I ever want to play some emulation, I can just hit the single ESDE game from my library, and then it opens up this front end that allows video game box scraping, better themes, and a lot of freedom to display your collection however you like. I absolutely love this software for organizing emulation. I'll also test some normal Steam games to see what kind of performance we can expect out of some older AAA titles like Cyberpunk and Resident Evil 4 Remake. But if you're expecting to run Monster Hunter Wilds at 1080p 60 FPS, good luck. I don't want to downplay the performance of this machine before we even start testing it, but just remember that it's the size of a book and costs like $300 all in. So temper your expectations. Most mini PCs worth their weight have settings in the BIOS to change their power output, but I feel like most gamers getting this machine would want to crank the settings, so that's how we're going to test it, all the way to 60 watts. Let's start the testing with some games that I already know are going to run well. Anything from Atari, NES, SNES, Game Boy, Game Boy Advanced, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, Dreamcast, and every other console released before 2000 are going to run perfectly well. You'll have no issues running all of your favorite retro games on this machine at normal settings. If these are the only types of games you want to play, this machine is actually way overkill, and it can usually be done on machines that cost less than $100, and they're even portable. Nevertheless, these all ran flawlessly on this machine. Now moving up to PlayStation 2, GameCube, PSP, and DS. All of these games also ran flawlessly. You can even experiment with upping the native resolution as we have a lot of headroom to play with. Be sure to experiment with widescreen hacks and graphical mods, as there are a lot of ways to tweak these games to look even better. But if you're okay with just the default settings, you're gonna have no problem. Also, if you notice on DS, you can change how the orientation of the two screens are on screen. That's a nice touch. Moving up to the original Xbox, PS Vita, Wii, and the 3DS. Again, no problems. Just remember that the higher you go to more recently released consoles, you will have to put in more work to get them going. That includes different BIOS files, tweaks to your settings, or special keys you'll have to extract yourself. So while all the old retro games work out of the box no issues, you might need to check some quick start guides on each emulator to know how to set them up properly. Xbox 360 also had no problem. I was able to rock Saints Row and didn't have any hitches, so that's fantastic. And same story for the Wii U. After the shaders compile while you're playing the game, you get pretty much a locked 60 FPS. But also remember that the performance of any game on this thing is only going to be as good as the emulator. There are some games to this day that are simply unplayable on any hardware, so be prepared to look up online what the performance is like for a certain game on a certain emulator. And upon trying out PlayStation 3 on RPSC3, I booted up Catherine and had a pretty good 60 FPS experience. No hitches or slowdowns, but this game is not that intensive, so let's move on to Wipeout HD, which actually is a super fast racing game that takes a lot of processing power, but I was still able to do pretty well. I did a few races and didn't see a single dip in FPS at all. That's pretty remarkable. And after looking at other people's performance on similar devices on Reddit, it seems like most PS3 games will run pretty well on here, and maybe only the top of the top might have a few issues. It's the same story for the Nintendo. Lower graphical games will have no problem whatsoever, and even Sonic Forces ran basically flawlessly. But playing that certain open world game with the elf boy, you know the one, you might have some slight slowdowns here and there running in the open world. Some tweaking might make this a little bit better though, so feel free to give it a shot. Let's test out some games on Steam now. This is Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p with all settings to low and FSR turned on, and we're hovering around 55 to 60 FPS, which I think is pretty fantastic performance. If you wanted to go native, you could turn the resolution down to 900p or maybe even 720, but honestly, this is totally playable as is, and I think it looks pretty great. Here we have Street Fighter 6 running at 1080p on the default settings, which is mostly low to medium settings, and while it's not a rock steady 60 FPS, it is hovering in the high 50s. This is more than enough to enjoy this game and even play competitively. The game is locked at 60 FPS no matter your computer for balancing reasons, so you wouldn't be at too much of a disadvantage compared to, racing or shooting games. It still looks great and plays relatively well. Resident Evil 4 Remake had a bit of a harder time. At 1080p with FSR on, we were hovering around 30 FPS. So maybe a last gen console experience, but I don't think 60 FPS is going to be on the table for this game. But if it was either play it like this or not play it at all, I mean, this is playable for sure, and I'd have no problem completing the game this way if I had to. Maybe bringing the resolution down a bit could help steady it out. Same deal with Final Fantasy 16. It's not silky smooth, but it is pretty steady, hovering at 30 to 36 FPS on 1080p. No major stutters or skips. If you held out on buying a PS5 to play this game and you're excited to play it on PC, this might not be the best way to go about it, but it's doable. So while this PC can play most AAA games, it obviously does not excel in some of the newer ones. But it does really excel in lower end games like Hades, Hollow Knight, and Balatro, as well as esports games like Valorant, Counter-Strike 2, and League of Legends. You're going to play all these amazing games at 1080p absolutely flawlessly. So who is the Nuckbox K6 for? Well, it's for the budget-conscious gamer who wants to play a wide variety of titles without breaking the bank on a massive desktop. It's for the retro enthusiast who wants a dedicated, powerful emulation machine that handles everything from the Atari all the way to the PlayStation 3 with some pretty remarkable fidelity. It's for someone who wants a powerful chip to power their home server needs. It's for anyone who appreciates getting a lot of bang for their buck in a tiny, unassuming package. If you want to pick up one of these mini PCs, I'll have a link in the description for AliExpress, probably with some helpful codes as well. Thank you to all the channel members for supporting the channel. Please like the video if you liked it, and get subscribed for more technology content. My name's Jason. Thanks for watching.